Marc Raimondi for ESPN, joined today by the newest edition of PFL. Look, he's even wearing the PFL shirt. Derek Brunson, longtime former UFC middleweight contender. Derek, I guess the first question is that everyone wants to know is, why did you leave the UFC? You know, you're going to PFL, you're fighting November 24th against Ray Cooper, but you were scheduled to fight in the UFC also in November. What happened?
It just didn't work out, I don't know. Um, PFL is just a great opportunity for me. It's a new challenge, new venture. I'm motivated. I would say with the UFC, just being on these big streaks and not getting my title shot, which I felt I deserved. I was on two 5-fight winning streaks and I never got the title shot. Even back in the days, I had guys who were champions that wouldn't accept their fight against me, so it kind of left me in no man's land to fight like a title eliminator. But yeah, man, just new motivation, new venture for me.
So did you request your release?
Yes,
Okay, and they said okay, they granted you the release.
pretty much.
Okay, okay. And now why PFL? What attracted you to PFL?
It's I like the format. They have $1 million tournament. The guys stay pretty active. I don't have to lobby for a title shot. I go out here and fight and get my hand raised. I'm moving on to the next one. So yeah, I like that format a lot. And like I said, it's no bitter will or any animosity towards UFC. I had a great time there, but you know, I'm super motivated with the new task at hand.
You're supposed to fight Roman Dolidze, right? In at MSG. Is that correct?
Yes,
Gotcha,
yes.
gotcha. And then I guess I'm just asking because there was kind of like just a curiosity about like the timing. Like, you were booked to fight. It was reported that you were fighting, and then all of a sudden you weren't in the UFC anymore. A little different than what normally happens.
Yeah. Again, man, I was up for the challenge. I would love to have fight Roman. It's just I think as long as I've been in the UFC, the motivation will have to be there. You know, I think for me at my current point, even these title eliminators, man, I felt pretty flat going into these fights. It's like, oh, here we go again. Got to fight another title eliminator instead of getting my deserved title shot. Look at Izzy and Pereira. Whenever they fought, who won the fight? Pereira won. Okay, so therefore, Pereira beat Izzy. There's no time. There's no need to have a rematch, right? So that's what a lot of MMA fans will say. Oh, you lost to Izzy already, but
Hmm.
it happens all the time. Guys will lose to a guy, they'll rematch him and beat him. That's a new motivation, man. It gets you up. And if these opportunities aren't being available, it's very tough, man. I think in some of these fights I was super tight. Just I don't know, like I would get into camp and just really wouldn't feel it. Like I said, I'm really enjoying and really liking this tournament format where I get to dictate my own fate.
How was the contract with PFL? Pretty happy with what they're giving you?
Oh yeah. It's definitely an upgrade. I got a job promotion. At age 39, I'm still getting promotion, so that's always a good thing.
You're fighting Ray Cooper on November 24th, and that's a big card. That's the PFL championship card, right? With all the title fights on it. Cooper is a really legitimate guy. I was there when
Yeah.
he knocked out Chris Curtis, who, is a pretty good
Mhm.
UFC middleweight right now. What are you looking at going into this one?
Those are two short guys. I'm a big 85er. So a little bit different from Chris Curtis. He like to stay standing there and trade. Um, but yeah, no, take Ray Cooper is definitely a tough individual, but I like my attributes. I like myself against anybody. I mean, you know what MMA fans cannot say, they can't shortcome me of Cannonier. I mean, um, that first round could have been a 10-8. Uh Dricus, that fight,
Mhm.
definitely won the first round 10-9. Like I lost these second rounds more on my own demise. Like I haven't been doing road work for the last 5 or 6 years. And now granted the doctor was like, oh, okay, your knee's a little bit injured, banged up. Maybe you shouldn't run. You can do strength and conditioning circuits. But I would say to be fighting at the top level against these high profile guys, high profile fights where guys are going to fight to death pretty much because they know what's at stake, is that you got to be doing road work. So now I'm adding that to my arsenal. I've been running for about 6 weeks, and now keeping that pace, getting tired in second rounds, it's not going to be a thing. That's a thing of the past. So like if you add that into my previous fights, I win those fights 9 out of 10 times, both of those fights. You know, I was dominating in the skills. You know, I just faded in the second round, and it cost me in both of those fights. But there's no question whether I was dominating those fights or not.
So is your knee all healed now?
Yeah. Well, so my knee wasn't like anything crazy, just from all the years of wrestling. You know, doctors like, oh well, maybe you should just do bike or like strength and conditioning should be enough. You know, but again, you can see it in the late rounds, and it's funny. I had a teammate who fought recently in the UFC, and I was watching that fight, and I'm like, this guy don't run. You know, and I messaged him instantly. I'm like, you don't run. You know, and I haven't heard back from him yet. You know, he just had a fight, so but you can see it. You can see when guys just lose their pace, when they start to slow down a little bit. And it's not because they're not working hard, because they're not in shape. It's because you need that pace from the road work. And I'm like, damn, I'm just figuring this out 13 years, 14 years into my career, you know?
When you first moved over, actually, but when you first became a free agent from the UFC a few weeks ago, I guess back in September, I was talking with your manager Ali Abdelaziz, and he mentioned that maybe 205 for you in the future, maybe light heavyweight. Is that something that you're considering for maybe next year or beyond?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I think after this fight, we're going to go 205, you know, get to feel good. You know, it's a lot of things in this game, man. MMA is one of the hardest sports in the world, being that everything must be on point that night when you fight, because at the end of the day, it's a full out fight. Like these other sports, you can take a play off. You know, you can go out and somebody can relieve you. You see guys in football games all the time, the wide receiver put his hand up, like, oh, I'm tired. I just ran a long 50 yards, caught the bar. They going on the sidelines, getting some water, chilling out for a little bit. It ain't that in MMA. It's like 1 second can be the end of the fight, you know. You've seen it over time, like guys be winning the whole fight and get clipped, you know. So yeah, man. Conditioning, I think moving up a weight class, not having to cut all that weight, be a great thing also.
So you think you'll be in the PFL 205 season next year, the light heavyweight season?
I think so at this point.
Gotcha, gotcha. You follow the sport pretty closely. I'm sure you've heard the rumors. Bellator, the future is kind of uncertain for them. PFL is the reported front runner to buy Bellator. That could happen pretty soon. And I'm just wondering, you know, they have some good fighters on that roster as well. So would you be into fighting maybe the Johnny Eblins of the world, the Vadim Nemkovs of the world if you're at 205 in the future?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they have some good fighters, man. That's the thing, man. Even when I was with the UFC, I never was like dismissive of other fighters in other organizations. I'm like, oh, they got some good fighters. Them guys are pretty good, you know. So like, yeah, man, I welcome all challenges. You know, it's good to be, you know, in the UFC for all these years, and now like I'm in a different promotion, and I get to see everything full circle and like look at all the fighters and like, okay, oh, this is the matchup. What about this matchup? Stuff like that.
It was about a year. I want to say it was a year ago, maybe even earlier this year, where you and Jake Paul kind of got into it a little bit on social media. And at the time, you know, the idea of Jake Paul versus Derek Brunson didn't seem very realistic, right? Because you were under UFC contract. Now you're in PFL. He is in PFL. How can we make this fight happen?
It's a possibility. It's a possibility now. You know, Jake was calling my name out when it wasn't a possibility because he knew Dana White wasn't gonna oblige. But now I came to his backyard and trying to see if he still got that same energy towards Mr. Brunson.
Have you had any discussions with PFL executives about this idea? Because he has said, and PFL has said that Jake Paul will fight in MMA in 2024.
Not yet, not yet. Our first task at hand is Ray Cooper, and then after that, we're gonna see what shakes out, what pans out.
What did you think of his fight against Nate Diaz?
I thought it was interesting. It was fun, you know. It was a Nate Diaz type fight. He come out there and bring the fight and make it interesting.
Do you think they should fight in MMA now?
Do I think they should fight in MMA? No, I think me and Jake Paul make a better fight, you know. Yeah, that's what I think. So yeah, we'll see.
You don't think, well, I'm sure, and obviously you want that fight and respect for you for that, but you don't think Jake Paul would beat Nate Diaz in MMA, do you?
Do I think Jake Paul beat Nate Diaz in MMA? Probably not. I
Okay,
think
but
he
you're
has
not,
this.
but you're not
I think he,
certain.
I'm not certain. I think he has. I think he has an outside chance. Like I think he has an outside chance. Whereas I guess in boxing, how did you have it before the boxing match? What you thought, like percentage wise? What chance did you give either or?
I mean, I thought Jake had the advantage physically. He was
Hmm.
definitely a bigger guy. I mean, I was there during fight week in Dallas, and you could see just how much of a bigger guy Jake was. Not just in terms of height, but also just size, right? Chest and
Hmm.
shoulder width and that kind of thing. So I thought he had a little bit of an advantage, like from an attribute standpoint. And then, I mean, I didn't know that Nate Diaz had an injury going into the fight. He was having trouble with his arm, so he couldn't really jab. I was not aware of that, but I did feel like, at least from a physical perspective and also just the boxing experience perspective, even though Nate has been boxing in training forever, it isn't the same thing as getting in there. Jake boxed Tyron Woodley twice, Anderson Silva. So I gave him a little bit of an edge in the boxing match. MMA though, I mean, you got to think Nate wins that fight, right? I mean, that's just me.
Well, what would you put him percentage wise before the boxing match?
Like
What'd you
who?
give Jake? Yeah, yeah. What would you say Jake was gonna win this? What like?
55, 45, 60, 40,
Oh,
something
so you
like
thought
that.
it was close. So
I
what do you
thought it
give
was
him in
I thought it
MMA?
was going to be close. I mean, because Nate's a dog, like.
Yeah, I get it. What do you give him in MMA?
Oh, I think Nate wins that like 80-20, right? No?
Okay. So I had the boxing match. I had probably Jake Paul. I thought he was probably about 75%. And in MMA, I give him a 45% chance.
Okay.
40. Maybe I give him 40, 60, 40, 60 Nate, 40 Jake.
It would be interesting. It would be interesting to see someone come over and do MMA, right, from the boxing side. That would be interesting to see. We don't see that as much as we see the other way.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely need to. I mean, somebody got to lay it on the line, put it out there. James Tony can't be the only one who get this work.
That's right. That's right. Good shout, James Toney, back in Boston 2010 against Randy Couture. A couple of things, last things for you, Derek. Your UFC division was middleweight, and there was a pretty big upset in that division. Title fight. Strickland beat Adesanya last month. Thoughts on that? Surprise to you? What did you think?
I wasn't too surprised. I don't know. Izzy looked a little. Just listen to some of his post fight. He said, "I'm just gonna fight for fun." He looked a little wore out. Like he's tired of doing all the media. Rather just fight these basic fights. Probably got enough money from the previous fights for him. He's pretty content, I guess. But yeah, man, he didn't show up. He didn't go for it. He didn't really put up much of a fight. You know. Um, Typically the Izzy that we used to seeing where he's gonna stand in that pocket and be like, "Hey, it's either me or you." He was just like, "It's you tonight." He really wasn't putting up a big effort and taking nothing away from Sean. I mean, but again, I would go back and say too, is like, man, when you get opportunity, you're gonna fucking train hard. You're gonna work your ass off. Opportunity, and you're kind of stale out there. Sean Strickland was 3-2 in his last 5 fights, and he's the champion. You know what I mean? So like when he got that call, he's like, hell yeah, let's do it. I mean, that's a new motivation. You think he's probably actually running those extra sprints, probably running an extra 2 miles. It's just everybody wants that opportunity, and like I said, kudos to him, but if you never get that opportunity, it's kind of tough to get up for these occasions or these little semi occasions.
Okay, last thing. There is another big middleweight fight coming up in the UFC. Got to ask you about this one because it's in the news a lot. Paulo Costa apparently had surgery just 3 weeks ago on some staph infection on his arm. He's fighting Hamzat Chimaev in Abu Dhabi, UFC 294. Your thoughts on that one?
I mean, well, why do we even have to see that? Are we giving out built-in excuses? Are you saying, "Hey, target my arm," or "I couldn't defend a takedown because my arm was inflamed," like, or I'm gonna put like I don't know, like listen, if I made an excuse for every time that uh try to build an excuse before I fought, I'll be undefeated right now. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a little bump on his arm. He'll get over it. Let's see the fight. Let's see how it goes.
So you're calling a little bit of BS on that arm thing.
Yeah, it sounds like a built-in excuse to me.
Fair enough. Derek, thank you so much. It's always good talking to you. Blonde Brunson, Ray Cooper, November 24th, PFL Championship, Washington, D.C. That's going to be a really good card. Excited to see you happy. You know, in PFL, it should be a new challenge. Should be fun to see you also next year in the 205 division. Derek, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.